I'd like to call the meeting of the Development Review Board to order, September 19th, 2017.
Okay, first item on our agenda, the minutes from our last meeting.
Any changes? Don't see any.
Move to accept.
I'll second. Okay, all in favor?
Thank you. We do have a sign-up sheet for anybody who'd like to speak to the board this evening. It includes the following oath statement. I solemnly swear or affirm under the pains and penalty of perjury that the statements I make, testimony I give, and other evidence I submit to the board at the board's public hearing held on this date shall be true and correct to the best of my knowledge and belief. And again, we ask that you sign that sign-up sheet before speaking to the board this evening. Next item on the agenda is disclosure of any ex parte communications or conflicts of interest regarding the matters before the board this evening.
Do you have any? Don't see any.
Okay. All right, our first item on the agenda tonight is 112 Northside Drive. The applicant is seeking design plan approval for changes to the exterior of the existing McDonald's restaurant in that location. The application review panel did review this application yesterday and recommended approval, but asked that we make a brief presentation to the board this evening regarding the proposed changes to the exterior. And today we have Steve Wilson with us.
Thank you. Thanks, Dan. Yes, good evening. Steve Wilson with Boulder Engineering on behalf of McDonald's USA LLC. Like Dan said, I'll just give you a brief overview of the investment McDonald's is looking to make into the property. The site as it exists today, Northside Drive, Hicks Avenue. No changes to the site at all, except McDonald's is just going to update the menu boards outside as part of the drive-through. So that's, in terms of site improvements, that's it. The building footprint is going to stay exactly the way it is. But we do want to renovate the building. It probably dates from, I'm going to say it's probably late 70s vintage. Some of you may know when it went up better than me, but just looking at the classic double mansard roof that typified the McDonald's of that late 70s, early 80s era. McDonald's is trying to remove those off the buildings and make the buildings a little more modern, a little more sophisticated, and cut down on some of make the colors a little bit more muted. So this represents the building elevations. This is the drive-through side of the building and the non-drive-through side of the building. Simply what the renovation does is everything basically from the top of the doors down stays as is. It's currently a textured block. From this point up, the mansard roof is removed and it's covered in ephes. Again, the building height stays the exact same as it currently is. It's just the building is given a little more modern. You can see that effect there when the roof is taken off the building. And as part of that renovation, there'd be bathroom upgrades, probably some improvements to the dining area, possible some minor improvements to the kitchen area as well. I think that's still up here a little bit. So, what's it going to look like in the real world? This is close, but this is not, based on our discussion yesterday, I was asked to bring a representation of what it's going to look like. This is not exactly what it looks like, but it's very close. The scale, the color of the building, the generalized features of the building are close. This is a building with a play place in front of it, and that will remain in the building. But you can get a sense here on particular McDonald's we're talking about. From this point down is all textured block, and again from this point up, so gives you a sense of the scale of the building and how it'll look in the future. Is that short enough?
Fine.
Is that the exact color or roughly the color?
That's roughly the color, yes.
Roughly.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Good.
Any other questions? Bill?
You doing anything with the exterior lighting or anything, any of that?
Not now.
Any other questions? Anyone from the
And I know there
audience?
was a question about why hasn't that sidewalk been left with asphalt? To be dead honest, I got conflicting answers, but all I can tell you, I'm going to guarantee you, it's going to be fixed very shortly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Any questions from the audience? What's the board's pleasure? Mary? Harry moves. Ron seconds. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? You all set, Steve?
Thank you very much.
Okay, next item on our agenda is the Tri-State Area Federal Credit Union on Washington Avenue. They're seeking development plan, subdivision plan, and design plan approval for a new credit union in that 125 Washington Avenue, or north of 125 Washington Avenue. This is the second hearing after the first or second meeting regarding this particular project. After the first hearing, the board granted preliminary approval. And Jason Dolmich from MSK is here to answer any additional questions the board may have regarding this application.
Jason Dolmich with MSK Engineering. I have not prepared a presentation tonight, but I'm happy to answer any additional questions if you have them.
Ron? Oh, I thought
No.
Ron has his hand up. Bill?
There's been some discussion over the removal of oil tanks. Oil tanks?
Oil tanks?
Yeah. How many is there? You got any idea?
Removal of oil tanks at this site location?
In phase one, whatever the...
This is the credit union, so I don't. I'm not aware of any.
He's on to the next one.
I got no questions on this one.
We're on the east side of Washington for this moment right now.
Anyone else have a question?
Are we on the Putnam building right now?
No, we're on credit union.
We're on the credit. That's not the...
You're wearing too many hats, you know that?
West side.
West side. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Any questions from the audience? Okay, what's the board's pleasure? Barry?
I'll move to close the hearing and go to deliberative session.
I'd say.
Bill seconds it. All in favor? Okay.
Okay, don't go anywhere.
I just got to get something else.
Next meeting, next hearing is the Putnam Hotel, as well as the Penn State Courthouse building and the Winslow building. This is also the second hearing. They are seeking development plan, subdivision plan, and design plan approval for the redevelopment of those three historic structures. And apparently Jason Dolmich is here to represent those folks in the room.
Jason Dolmich with MSK Engineering here to represent for the Bennington Redevelopment Group and Normcell Development on the subdivision or the lot line adjustment, demolition plan, and proposed conditions, site plan development for the Putnam block. I believe the only submittal that we provided to you in the interim was an updated rendering of the proposed exterior of the Putnam Hotel. And this was to address two questions. One was the impacts of view based on the roof penetrations, the new roof construction, which I believe is the mechanical system and stair tower and elevator shaft. As you can see from the perspective, when you're up close to the Putnam building, you do not see them. As you get further down the street, you do. The proposal is to paint, I believe on the plans that were submitted, it was painting the elevator, the taller protrusion with like a blue sky, blue grayish color, and then the shorter with a brick red. But I also checked with the architects earlier this afternoon and confirmed that they would see no issue with also having the lower protrusion painted that similar color. And then also they updated the rendering of what the landscaping and railings would look like along the front end, showing a more softened and appealing viewpoint of the railing and elevated walk that would serve for the accessibility requirements for the building. And then, does anybody have any questions on that?
Jane?
The railing is very modern against the historic structure and does not reflect in terms of proportion and pattern anything of the existing building. Do you think it could be possible that they could try a little harder?
Would it be appropriate for us to have them try harder and submit to the HPC for approval?
Yeah.
Yes? So with them, I believe that
My sense is that would be what we would like.
We can discuss it in deliberative session, what we'd like to, what sort of conditions we'd like to place on.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if you have any further questions, you certainly would want to ask Jason.
Was I clear?
Absolutely clear. I completely understand. I would be happy to expound upon it, but I would not be as good as someone who's more qualified than myself. So,
Any other questions? Bill?
Is it safe to ask now?
yes.
Same question, right place.
Oil tank removal.
Yeah.
Yes. So in the corrective action plan, there is a 10,000 gallon sorry. In the corrective action plan, there's a 10,000 gallon oil tank that's going to be removed in this vicinity here. So as a part of, that's part of the cleanup process.
It's one tank,
I believe so,
just as
yes.
far as you know.
As far as I know, yes.
Okay. And you've done those, have you done any soil testing?
They have,
And
yes.
What'd they find?
They found TCE, PAH, and I am not certain that they found petroleum-based product, actual leak in that tank. But I don't know.
What was the first thing they found?
TCE and PAH, trichloroethylene. Based, I believe it's from the original dry cleaning operation that was there, or the tanning operation. There again.
Jason, can you speak up?
Yeah, so this was from a prior industrial use on the site. We do have, I understand as there was some public comment for that meeting, we do have both follow-up correspondence from the Agency of Natural Resources who reviewed and approved the corrective action plan, as well as the original engineering company who completed the corrective action plan. And I would be happy to submit these letters to the board if they're willing to accept them.
Okay, Bill? Ron?
At the last meeting, there was a question brought up about storage or removal of hazardous waste. And I was mulling that over and I looked through the minutes and I didn't see where we had anything about that. Do you have the permit from, what is it, Vermont?
That's what he's talking about.
That one, I mean, for all hazardous waste, whatever asbestos, and are you gonna move it? And if you're gonna move it, when are you gonna move it?
So that is addressed in the letter.
That is.
And they specifically discussed the TCE and PAHs. And so the PAH, basically where they found the contamination was inside the courtyard area, and the TCE is sort of on phase 2 in this location. And the intent, and I'm summarizing here, but I would let the record reflect the letters that were submitted, that the PAH soil would be stockpiled on the demolished, the area where the Greenberg's building will be demoed, and it will be placed on that slab and covered temporarily. And then during the phase 2 construction, when the TCE soils are removed, the PAH will be buried on site in that location.
And if in fact they do find asbestos, which they probably will in the thing, this comes under the same rule, you're gonna store that. Last time you mentioned, the presenter did, kept referring to this as a commercial industrial area, which it is, but it's also a residential area.
We asked, that's true, and we did ask the agency to comment on that, and they have in their letter, basically reconfirmed that the classification of that in the corrective action plan is appropriate for what they were concerned about.
Is it from the Vermont one or the federal one, or which one are you getting?
Both Vermont, so there's one corrective action plan,
Yeah.
and both EPA and the state of Vermont have reviewed and approved it.
Okay, thank you, Jason.
Dan?
So potentially, how long would the soil that's removed in phase one linger there before it's completely taken away from the site? Do you have an estimate on that?
I wouldn't be, I would not want to misstate, but could provide that in a follow-up correspondence to
I think
provide
that
you something accurate.
to answer your question, it's not being removed from the site. It will be, my understanding based on the corrective action plan, reburied on site.
Correct, it will be reburied.
So it
That's-
will not be
Line-
that particular.
Well, the TCE material would be removed, but
Yes.
that would also be excavated, so.
My concern is that something that's removed or excavated and then pending removal is not going to be sitting there for months and months or potentially even years between the different phases
Between
of the
phase one and
project.
phase two, I understand that. So I think we can, an appropriate thing for me would be to provide you with a written communication about that and to ensure that it's not going to stay there forever if by chance phase two is delayed.
Yeah, much less than forever.
Right, that's correct. It's significantly less than forever.
Ron?
Yeah, along the same line, Jason. I'd like to see in your letter, there's some ruling, I think, about how far away it needs to be from a residential area. Is that right? Is there something regarding that? When you store the hazardous waste?
So the corrective action plan
Yeah,
is, sorry.
that's in there.
I am not, the corrective action plan addresses those issues
Oh, that's that.
and meets the agency's ruling
Okay.
with respect to that.
Hate to belabor that.
I understand, and I hate to not be more specific, but
Okay, thanks.
Bill?
Has there been any estimates of yardage being excavated?
yes. And it is in the cap, which we can submit the cap to you as well.
Okay. Because that's really, gives us an idea of what's going on.
Okay.
Okay, Bill?
I'm all set.
Anyone else? Anyone from the audience like to speak this evening? Okay, Joel, come on.
Joel Lenzner. Well, just to address the,
Have you
Joel
signed it?
He's already signed it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, he
thank
already
you.
signed it.
Proactive from the beginning.
just to answer your question the best that I can, and maybe Dan can confirm it, about the time span that I was told by the DEC for the storage, the stockpiling was approximately 6 months. I think that's what it says in the cap. And I know I can answer your question about the number of feet to a residence. It's 100 feet is what it states, and I think if we tried to measure it, it's hard to get a measurement that distance, but it might be 130 or 40 feet from Sarah Dole's residence to where the stockpile is. But that's not why I came to just answering those questions that I know. What I really wanted to speak was, last time I was here, I had brought up some concerns to the board that I had, especially about dust from the TCE excavation and the PAH excavation and stockpiling. After, I think, maybe some initial hesitancy about my motivation by what ended up happening after some correspondence with the DEC and Dan and some other folks, is that they actually amended their corrective action plan. So the one that we're talking about is, at least I hope the one that Jason was talking about is the amended plan. And I'll read you a short letter from Christy Herzer at the DEC. Good afternoon, Joel. Your concerns about fugitive dust during construction activities were brought to the attention of the environmental consultants. In regards to your concerns about fugitive dust during construction, the protocol for dust monitoring for Putnam Block has been amended. Please find the attached letter from Nobis, the environmental consultants, which lists the amendments. They have also provided more detail about the stockpiled area and how it will be maintained. Given this and the information that I talked to Dan about today, my concerns have been allayed. I'm good with this. My understanding now is that they'll be doing daily air monitoring while they're excavating the TCE and PAH, lots of acronyms. And that's what I had hoped for, was to make sure that the dust and the vapor levels weren't getting to our home, which is about 150 feet away. So I'm satisfied with where we were. I'm glad that the DEC got involved and amended the corrective action plan. And my only suggestion, and I haven't brought this up to Dan yet, and I know this doesn't fall on your shoulders, really. It's the responsibility of the DEC, and I've talked to Chuck Schweer about it. When there's an issue with this board in concerns of abutting property owners, like for the park next door to me, I received a letter from the town saying there's something coming up, there's an item on the agenda, a property next year's, you can show up if you'd like to. The state doesn't have that provision like the town of Bennington does. So when the state had their public hearing in July, I knew nothing about it. I contacted most of the other abutting property owners that are listed in the corrective action plan. None of them knew about this meeting in July. I'm just saying, it doesn't fall on your shoulders. It's the DEC that needs to amend what their policy is. But in the future, until they do, maybe for abutting property owners, when things come up like this, maybe the town somehow could notify them until they change their policy at the state level. Just consider us a little more forward-thinking when it comes to this. That's it. Thank you very much.
That may also be something you might want to present at a select board meeting.
That's a good idea. Yeah. That's a good idea.
Yeah, the select board would have to make that decision.
Okay. Thanks.
Anyone else? It's the board's pleasure.
Move executive session.
Deliberative, close the hearing, go to deliberative.
Deliberative session.
Second?
Second.
Dan seconds. All in favor?
All right, unless there is any other business, motion to adjourn would be in order.
Ron moves, Barry seconds. All in favor? Yep.